And welcome back to Straight Talk. As Oregon heads toward primary season, now less than 6 months away, the race for governor is already underway. Republicans will decide who carries their party into November, and the field is already taking shape. Marion County Commissioner Danielle Bethell is in the running, challenging former House GOP leader and 2022 nominee Christine Drazen for the Republican nomination. Now, we have extended an invitation to interview Drazen, and we do look forward to having her on at a later date. But today, we meet Danielle Bethell, who announced she is running for governor back in April. Bethell has served as a Marion County Commissioner since 2021. In addition to serving as County Commissioner, Bethell owns a plumbing company with her husband. She's previously held positions on the Kaiser Chamber of Commerce, the Salem-Keizer Schools Board of Directors, and the Association of Oregon Counties. Commissioner, thanks so much for being with us today.
Thank you for having me. I'm looking forward to the conversation.
Yes, appreciate your time. Okay, first, let's get right into it. What has prompted you to want to run for governor?
Well, I'll tell you, Oregon isn't moving in the right direction as far as outcomes when we look at the scale of homelessness and housing challenges and the economy. All we hear is negatives. And I have a track record of bringing real solutions to really hard problems. And I think we need a leader that understands what that looks like from the full scale of government, not just one perspective of policymaking.
What will you take from your experience as Marion County Commissioner into a statewide role like this?
Well, I've had the opportunity for the last 3 years to actually perform statewide. I was the president of the Association of Oregon Counties in 2024, and that's a 4-year position where you spend time building into it. That has taken me into every county in Oregon multiple times, and so I have a really firm grip on what challenges exist in all 36 counties uniquely. So taking that knowledge into the statewide role as governor is going to be really valuable to meeting local needs.
So you are, of course, entering the primary, which will be facing Christine Drazen, who was a frontrunner in 2022. For viewers, how do you differ as a candidate from Drazen?
Yeah, so I have appreciated Christine for some time. We've worked together. I helped her on her 2022 election race, and the distinction is she's a policymaker. She's worked in the legislature essentially her whole time in office, and I'm an executive. I'm running a government today, the 5th largest in Oregon, actually, and I have real life experience in being a problem solver from a leadership role in Oregon right now.
If you were governor today, what would the first thing that you would do in office be?
Well, there's a lot of things, so choosing one is difficult to prioritize because I think there's a lot of opportunity. But the first thing I want to do is really look at the cost-benefit analysis of the state and why so many businesses are leaving, establish a real understanding and foundation of the regulation that's forcing businesses out, and looking to shore that up. Oregon's government can't function if it doesn't have a thriving economy and a thriving business industry. What a lot of folks don't recognize and or spend a lot of time in the weeds on is how government is paid for. And that's actually off the backs of employees and employers. So we have to have a robust system of that in order for government to function well.
What are your top priorities that you want to pitch to voters next year and right now as kind of your leading things that you want to focus on in Oregon?
Yeah, I really want to have the big, bold conversation around the fact that we've spent way too much money on the homelessness and housing crisis in Oregon with really little to no outcome. There was a report recently released that showed the growth in Multnomah County essentially was 62% over the 2 years that Governor Kotek has been in office, and the state's invested over $1 billion in that. That's the wrong kind of investment with the wrong kind of outcome. I have to live within my means as a county commissioner and a business owner and a mom, and I expect the government to do that too. And also, we have a lot of people suffering in our community, not just individuals on the streets, but a lot of individuals in their homes, families, individuals, seniors, people with disabilities. And we're not having the real hard conversations. I expect to stand on the stage as much as possible to talk about in the weeds details of the systems of Oregon's government that's going wrong, and then offer real life solutions that I've performed as a county commissioner with real results that I believe Oregonians are after in a really hungry way.
What specific things do you feel like would help with the homelessness crisis, with the addiction crisis we're seeing? I know it seems like a really, really difficult, complex problem. So you're saying you don't agree with the way that we've seen from Governor Kotek. So what would you do differently specifically?
Well, specifically, I would look at the resources that the legislature has allocated to the Oregon Housing and Community Services Agency and call out the policy model that those funds are distributed on. Right now, every region in Oregon receives a share of those funds, and the state has a perspective on policy that you need to provide as low barrier access as possible. That interpretation is very broad and undefined in essence, and it needs to truly be defined. And there needs to be real accountability with those resources, not just because the taxpayer expects it, but because the people receiving those benefits deserve it. We need to have a more controlled space and a real statewide conversation of what are the community expectations of Oregonians by community. Turning government from a bottom-up approach instead of a top-down approach is doable and is necessary for all of us to have a voice at the table.
Another priority you've mentioned is livability and affordability in Oregon. What would you do around that to make Oregon more affordable for people?
Well, in general, we need to look at the industries that are thriving in Oregon and those that aren't thriving. We have essentially cut the legs off of our natural resource industry here in Oregon, and we need to get a real hard conversation going around, is that sustainable? Can we rely on the investments of federal government and income tax only to thrive in this state? How do we reduce the cost of living as a whole? And then we have to look at the market. Where are we purchasing our things from? And if we're having to pull them from all across the state and the country and the world, we're gonna pay more for that. Right here in our own backyards, we have a lot of resources that we're not tapping into. There's a balanced discussion that is overdue between the environmental industry and the natural resource industry, and I want to lead that conversation. And I want to open back up our forests to natural resource access and thriving in those economies again. And I believe that'll bring the cost. It'll certainly bring down the cost of housing because we won't be importing lumber from Canada and Japan. We can cut those trees here and build houses.
Looking back, Oregon has had primarily Democratic governors, at least in recent history. How do you feel you want to reach or get the support of voters, maybe who are more in urban spaces or who don't generally vote Republican?
Yeah, well, I think that we need to have a practical choice. Somebody that's not coming in hard charging on an agenda of just policy in general. I'm not interested in coming into the governor's office with this big agenda around a particular topic. I want to come into office as a governor and manage the government. I want to run the state from a real local perspective. Voters are looking for somebody that they can relate to. I'm a fifth-generation Oregonian, a small business owner, a mom, a grandma, and I grew up in severe poverty. I understand the challenges of breaking that cycle and working hard and navigating the systems that are clunky and or broken. My lived experience offers me a different perspective in front of voters that I want them to lean into and ask about.
Right now, we're seeing a really big clash between state rights, state government, and federal government. How would you play a role in that, and what do you think should be done differently around that right now?
Well, I think that if you are going to come into a leadership space and just want to fight with other leaders, you're not going to gain any real outcomes. I believe we have to have balance and compromise. I'm not going to get everything I want, and they're not going to get everything they want. But if we see it in real true partnership and we can work towards the same goal, then I think we can accomplish a lot together. I look forward to having the conversation with the federal administration on some of their policies that I don't agree with and some of their policies that I do, and finding ways to integrate that conversation into real outcomes in Oregon's system.
What are some of the things that you do agree with right now and some that you don't?
Well, I'll tell you, I don't agree with the president on his approach to timber receipts. Oregon's a timber-driven state, as you're aware, and we have 17 counties that are in jeopardy of real financial loss because of the way the president drafted the big, beautiful bill in timber harvesting. I think we need to have a conversation so he understands what that looks like for Oregonians, and also just the natural resource industry as a whole across the country. The things I do agree with is real reform in our human service systems of care. I think we need more accountability and understanding as to who we're serving through social services. And I believe that there are people we want in that system because we should take care of them. And there are other people that we should lead to more self-sustaining results. But we need to have a plan and a bridge for that, not just a cut it all off and move forward.
Thank you so much for being here, and thank you for watching. A reminder, you can stream Straight Talk on your own schedule. You can download the free TV app, KGW+. It's available now on Roku, Apple TV, and Fire TV. We'll see you back here next week.